I thought my new house in Oakwood Heights would be my dream home, until an HOA president turned my life into a living nightmare by illegally selling my car right off my own driveway. But what Linda Thompson didn't expect was that her perfect little scheme would unravel thanks to one elderly neighbor with security cameras. The question is, would justice be served before she destroys more lives in our community? Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe if you want more Karen and HOA stories. The day I moved into Oakwood Heights was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. After 10 years of saving every penny from my IT job, I finally had my dream home. A beautiful 2-story house with a wraparound porch and my very own driveway. The morning sun hit my black Mercedes just right as I parked it there for the first time, making it sparkle like the day I bought it after 5 years of overtime shifts. I was carrying in the last box when I heard that voice. "Excuse me." The sound was sweet like honey, but something about it made my skin crawl. There she stood, Linda Thompson, in her crisp white pantsuit and pearls, clutching a thick binder labeled HOA Guidelines, like it was her personal Bible. "You must be Mr. Jackson," she said, her eyes darting between me and my car. "I'm the president of our homeowners association. We need to discuss your vehicle situation." The way she said vehicle situation made it sound like I'd parked a garbage truck in the driveway instead of a luxury car I'd worked my whole life to own. I tried to be nice, explaining how I'd read all the HOA guidelines before buying. Nothing in there mentioned anything about car colors or brands. But Linda just kept flipping through her binder, her red nails clicking against each page like tiny warning bells. My new neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was watering her roses next door. She caught my eye and shook her head slightly, as if trying to warn me. I'd learn later just how right she was to worry. That first meeting ended with Linda handing me a friendly reminder. Notice about maintaining neighborhood standards. As I watched her march back to her house, her heels clicking on the sidewalk, my phone buzzed. A text from the previous homeowner. "Watch out for Linda. She's been trying to control who moves into the neighborhood for years." I brushed it off then. After all, I had all my paperwork in order. My house was perfect, and my car was worth more than Linda's entire wardrobe. What could she possibly do? That night, I found my first notice taped to my door. Vehicle in violation of color standards. Article 7, Section 12. Funny thing was, when I checked the HOA guidelines, Article 7 only had 10 sections, and none of them mentioned car colors at all. I documented everything, taking photos of the notice and the guidelines. Something in my gut told me this wouldn't be the last time I'd need proof. As I headed to bed, I noticed Linda standing in her window across the street, watching my house. The porch light caught her face just right, making her smile look more like a predator sizing up its prey. I had no idea then that this was just the beginning. No idea that my dream home would turn into a battleground. And I definitely didn't know that Linda Thompson had already started making calls to her friends on the HOA board, setting in motion a plan that would test everything I believed about justice, fairness, and the true cost of standing up for what's right. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The way other neighbors quickly looked away when I waved. How the gardener suddenly canceled my lawn service without explanation. The mysterious HOA meetings that happened without notice. But I was too busy celebrating my new home to notice I'd stepped into Linda's carefully laid trap. I knew something was wrong when I saw Linda marching across my lawn at 7 a.m., her heels leaving tiny holes in the grass I'd just replanted. My coffee was still hot in my hand as I opened the door, trying my best to stay polite. The way she gripped that bright blue clipboard made me think of a weapon. "Mr. Jackson, your car is disrupting the neighborhood aesthetic," she announced, not even saying good morning. I glanced at my Mercedes, gleaming in the morning sun. The same car I'd driven to 3 job interviews before landing. My software engineering position. The same car that took me 5 years of overtime and packed lunches to afford. "Linda, we've been over this," I said, keeping my voice steady like my dad always taught me. "The HOA guidelines specifically allow metallic black vehicles. I have it right here." I reached for the document on my entry table. I'd started keeping it handy. She cut me off with a wave of her manicured hand. "The board has concerns about the reflection. It's blinding Mrs. Peterson across the street." I looked over at Mrs. Peterson's house, wondering if Linda realized I could see the elderly woman happily watering her plants, completely unbothered by my car. But before I could point this out, Linda was already writing something on her clipboard. "This is your 3rd warning about vehicle violations," she declared. Though I'd never received any official warnings before, my heart started beating faster. But I remembered what my lawyer friend had told me. Document everything. "I'll need copies of those previous warnings," I said, pulling out my phone to record our conversation. Linda's face twitched when she saw me hit record. "Put that away," she snapped, her friendly neighborhood leader mask slipping for a second. Photography and recording of HOA officials is against our bylaws. I smiled slightly. Actually, Linda, I have the bylaws right here too. There's nothing about recording. I held up my tablet, showing the PDF I'd highlighted during my late-night research sessions. That's when Mrs. Chen appeared on her porch next door, watering her prize-winning orchids, but I noticed she was paying more attention to us than her plants. Linda noticed too. Her whole demeanor changed instantly. Just make sure you're in compliance. Mr. Jackson, she said sweetly, but her eyes were cold. As she turned to leave, she paused. Oh, and the board meeting has been rescheduled to tomorrow at 2 p.m. I work until 5, I called after her. She just kept walking. Later that afternoon, Mrs. Chen came over with her homemade dumplings. I saw what happened, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Linda did the same thing to the Rodriguez family last year. Their blue truck? She claimed it was too ethnic for the neighborhood. My stomach tightened. What happened to them? Mrs. Chen looked down at her hands. They moved. Couldn't take the harassment. But I've been keeping records, taking pictures. Something's not right with how she runs things. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the Rodriguez family, about Linda's fake warnings, about the rescheduled meeting I couldn't attend. My phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Chen. Emergency HOA meeting happening right now at Linda's house. I can see everyone going in through my window. I sat up in bed, my mind racing. They couldn't do this, holding unannounced meetings, making decisions without all homeowners present. I opened my laptop and started typing, documenting everything that had happened. Every interaction, every violation of HOA bylaws. The timestamps on Mrs. Chen's photos would be crucial. As I was about to close my laptop, another text from Mrs. Chen came through. They're voting on something. Linda looks too happy about it. I stared at my car through the bedroom window, remembering how proud I'd felt the day I bought it. It wasn't just a car. It was proof that all my hard work had meant something. Now, in this supposedly upscale neighborhood, it had become a target. But why? The answer hit me when I scrolled through the HOA's violation records. I'd requested last week. Every single major violation. Notice in the past year had been issued to either minority, homeowners, or elderly residents living alone. The pattern was there, hidden in plain sight. A final text from Mrs. Chen lit up my phone. Meeting over. Linda's brother-in-law was here. He owns that dealership on Maple Street. They were looking at your property file. I got out of bed and looked at my car again. Something told me this was about way more than just a black Mercedes in a driveway. The question was, what were they planning, and would I be able to stop them in time? That night I couldn't sleep. The security cameras caught Linda and 3 other board members, walking around my property at 2 a.m., taking photos and measurements. Mrs. Chen texted me screenshots from the neighborhood Facebook group where Linda was rallying support for new property appearance standards that would require all cars to be parked in garages. I started researching HOA laws and discovered Linda's tactics weren't just unfair, they were illegal. But as I dug deeper into previous board decisions, I found something even more disturbing. Every homeowner who'd been forced out in the past year shared one thing in common with me. A certified letter arrived the next morning. Final warning, vehicle in violation. My hands shook as I read it, but not from fear this time. Something about the signature looked off. I called the HOA's registered law firm to verify the letter's authenticity. And their response chilled me to the bone. They hadn't sent any letters to my address. Who else had received fake violation notices? What was Linda really planning? And most importantly, why was she so desperate to get my car off my property? That she'd risk forging legal documents? I didn't know it then. But by morning, my worst fears would become reality. I woke up that Tuesday morning to my phone buzzing with missed calls from Mrs. Chen. My heart dropped when I looked out my bedroom window. My driveway was empty. My Mercedes, my pride and joy that I'd worked overtime for 5 years to buy, was gone. At first, I thought I was still dreaming. But the cold morning air hitting my face as I ran outside made it all too real. There was nothing but oil stains where my car had been parked. My security camera was tilted up towards the sky. Someone had deliberately moved it. A crisp white envelope sat in my mailbox. The HOA logo perfectly centered like a punch to the gut. Inside was a letter stating, my vehicle had been lawfully removed, due to multiple violations. The paper felt fake in my hands, just like Linda's sugary sweet smile. My phone buzzed again. Mrs. Chen's voice was shaking. I saw everything from my window. They came at 3 a.m. like thieves in the night. Linda was there in her pink robe, directing the tow truck like she was conducting an orchestra. I took videos, but they made sure to stay in the shadows. I sat on my front steps, trying to keep my breathing steady like my mom taught me. That's when I noticed something odd. Tire marks on my lawn, leading from my driveway to the street. Linda had always complained about my perfect lawn care not being perfect enough. but now there were actual tracks ruining the grass. The irony would have been funny if I wasn't so angry. My hands were steady as I called the police. The dispatcher's voice changed when I mentioned Linda Thompson's name. "Sir, we've had similar calls about the HOA in your area before." She promised to send an officer, but warned me it might be classified as a civil matter. While waiting, I started documenting everything. The missing camera footage, the tire marks, Mrs. Chen's video. I even found a makeup compact mirror on my lawn, the same brand I'd seen Linda using during HOA meetings when she thought no one was watching. I carefully picked it up with a tissue and put it in a plastic bag. Years of watching crime shows with my sister finally came in handy. Officer Martinez arrived just as Linda started her morning power walk. I watched through my window as she slowed down, her power walk turning into a casual stroll. She was trying to eavesdrop, but Officer Martinez guided me inside. The moment we closed the door, Linda's phone came out. I could practically see the HOA group chat lighting up. "This isn't the first complaint. We've had about questionable towing in this neighborhood," Officer Martinez said quietly, writing in his notebook. "But they're usually careful to make it look legal. This time," he paused, looking at the letter. "This authorization signature? It's dated for next week." My mind raced to all the times Linda had messed up small details. The meeting minutes with impossible timestamps. The violation notices that arrived before their inspection dates. She was efficient at being awful, but not at covering her tracks. I pulled out my phone and showed Officer Martinez the collection of harassment documentation I'd been keeping, every email, every letter, every violation notice. His eyebrows went up when he saw the dates and patterns, but what really got his attention was a photo Mrs. Chen had sent me last night. Linda, talking to someone in a dealership polo shirt behind my car. Just then, Mrs. Chen called again. Her voice was different this time, urgent. "They just posted on the community Facebook page. Your car is being put up for immediate auction, due to emergency circumstances. The listing? It's already marked as sold from this morning. Check your email." I opened my inbox with shaking hands. There it was. A receipt for a completed auction sale. Timestamped 9 a.m., sent from Thompson Valley Auto Sales, the same dealership owned by Linda's brother-in-law. The same man who'd been in Mrs. Chen's photo last night. Officer Martinez was already on his radio. This wasn't a civil matter anymore. Linda had finally made a mistake big enough to matter. As if on cue, I watched through my window as she power walked past my house again. Phone pressed to her ear, face red with either exercise or panic. She didn't know it yet, but her perfect little plan was about to unravel faster than her designer activewear. My doorbell rang. Standing there was Tom from 3 houses down, looking nervous. I think I need to show you something about Linda and the HOA board. But not here. Meet me at the coffee shop in an hour?" I nodded, my mind racing. What else had Linda been up to in our quiet little neighborhood? My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I stared at my empty driveway. For the 100th time that morning, the police officer's words kept echoing in my head. "It seems like a civil matter, sir, but something about this felt wrong, terribly wrong." That's when my phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Chen. "Come over quickly. I have something you need to see." I rushed next door, still in my pajamas, to find Mrs. Chen at her kitchen table surrounded by papers. Her hands trembled as she pushed her iPad toward me. "I couldn't sleep last night," she whispered. "I was reviewing my security footage when I saw this. The video showed Linda Thompson standing in my driveway at 3 a.m., flashlight in hand, directing a tow truck. But it was what happened next that made my blood run cold. Linda handed the driver a stack of papers, then pulled out her phone to take pictures of my empty driveway. The timestamp showed 3:47 a.m., just hours before. I discovered my car missing. Mrs. Chen had more. She'd been keeping a detailed log of every interaction between Linda and me, complete with dates, times, and photographs. Smart woman. "Wait," I said, squinting at another document on her table. "Is that a sales receipt?" Mrs. Chen nodded grimly. Her nephew worked at the county clerk's office and had done some digging. My car hadn't just been towed. It had been sold at auction that very morning. The buyer? Superior Auto Sales, owned by none other than Linda's brother-in-law, Mark Thompson. The expedited auction had happened in record time, bypassing the usual 30-day waiting period. The paperwork claimed my car was abandoned property, with multiple documented violations. My stomach churned as I read through the forged documentation. Linda had apparently been building this case for months, fabricating violations that never existed. But she'd made mistakes, big ones. The violation notices she'd forged had dates that didn't match her own HOA meeting minutes. The towing authorization form had my signature, a horrible attempt at forgery that looked nothing like my real signature. And the biggest mistake of all, she'd used her personal email address to coordinate everything, leaving a digital trail a mile wide. Mrs. Chen made us both tea while I called my cousin, a paralegal at Johnson and Martinez Law. As we waited for her callback, Mrs. Chen revealed something that made my jaw drop. "You're not the first," she said quietly, pulling out a worn notebook. "Remember the Patels who moved away last year? Their boat disappeared the same way. And Mrs. Rodriguez's vintage Mustang? Same story. But they were too scared to fight back." My phone rang. My cousin, Sarah. Her voice was tight with anger as she listened to my story. "Don't touch anything else," she said. "Don't confront Linda. We're going to need everything documented exactly as it is. I'm calling Marcus Martinez right now. He specializes in housing discrimination cases." Just then my doorbell rang. Through Mrs. Chen's window, I could see Linda standing on my porch, that fake smile plastered on her face, holding what looked like another violation notice. Mrs. Chen grabbed my arm. "Don't answer it," she whispered. "Look at her body language. She's nervous. She knows we're onto something." I watched silently as Linda slipped the notice into my mailbox, then took a photo of it with her phone. But this time, something was different. Her hands were shaking too. Maybe she'd realized what she'd done wasn't just wrong, it was criminal. As she walked away, her phone rang. Even from inside, we could hear her sharp tone. "Mark, we need to talk, now." Mrs. Chen and I looked at each other. The pieces were falling into place, but something told me this was just the beginning. My car wasn't just stolen. It was part of a larger scheme that went beyond simple harassment. The question was, how deep did this conspiracy go? And who else had been silently suffering under Linda's reign of terror? I couldn't sleep that night after discovering the truth about my car. The clock hit 3 a.m. when my phone lit up with a text from Mrs. Chen. "Come over now. You need to see this." My hands were shaking as I walked across the street to her house, where I found her sitting at her kitchen table with a stack of papers and her laptop open. "I'm not the only one who's been watching," she said, turning her laptop to show me a private Facebook group. My jaw dropped as I scrolled through post after post from other homeowners. In our neighborhood, Sarah from 2 streets over had her garden destroyed because it wasn't up to standards, even though she had all the right permits. Mr. Rodriguez's food truck business was almost shut down last year because Linda claimed it lowered property values to have it parked in his garage, despite him having written permission from the previous HOA board. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. It was David from the corner house, then Maria from across the park, followed by the Patels from the cul-de-sac. Soon, Mrs. Chen's living room was packed with neighbors, all with their own Linda stories. Someone had brought a whiteboard, and we started mapping out every incident. A pattern emerged that made my blood run cold. Every single target was either a person of color, elderly, or both. "Look at this," Maria said, pulling up the HOA financial records on her tablet. She's an accountant, and what she found made us all lean in closer. "There's a pattern of emergency maintenance fees charged only to certain houses. And guess what? They all match our addresses." The Patel's teenage son, who runs the neighborhood's social media, pulled out his phone. "Check this out," he said, showing us snapshots from the community website. Every time someone posted about Linda's harassment, the posts would disappear within hours. But he'd been saving screenshots for months, building a digital trail of her abuse of power. Just then my doorbell rang. Through Mrs. Chen's window, I could see Linda standing on my porch, that fake smile plastered on her face, holding what looked like another violation notice. Mrs. Chen grabbed my arm. "Don't answer it," she whispered. "Look at her body language. She's nervous. She knows we're onto something." I watched silently as Linda slipped the notice into my mailbox, then took a photo of it with her phone. But this time, something was different. Her hands were shaking too. Maybe she'd realized what she'd done wasn't just wrong, it was criminal. As she walked away, her phone rang. Even from inside, we could hear her sharp tone. "Mark, we need to talk, now." Mrs. Chen and I looked at each other. The pieces were falling into place, but something told me this was just the beginning. My car wasn't just stolen. It was part of a larger scheme that went beyond simple harassment. The question was, how deep did this conspiracy go? And who else had been silently suffering under Linda's reign of terror? I couldn't sleep that night after discovering the truth about my car. The clock hit 3 a.m. when my phone lit up with a text from Mrs. Chen. "Come over now. You need to see this." My hands were shaking as I walked across the street to her house, where I found her sitting at her kitchen table with a stack of papers and her laptop open. "I'm not the only one who's been watching," she said, turning her laptop to show me a private Facebook group. My jaw dropped as I scrolled through post after post from other homeowners. In our neighborhood, Sarah from 2 streets over had her garden destroyed because it wasn't up to standards, even though she had all the right permits. Mr. Rodriguez's food truck business was almost shut down last year because Linda claimed it lowered property values to have it parked in his garage, despite him having written permission from the previous HOA board. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. It was David from the corner house, then Maria from across the park, followed by the Patels from the cul-de-sac. Soon, Mrs. Chen's living room was packed with neighbors, all with their own Linda stories. Someone had brought a whiteboard, and we started mapping out every incident. A pattern emerged that made my blood run cold. Every single target was either a person of color, elderly, or both. "Look at this," Maria said, pulling up the HOA financial records on her tablet. She's an accountant, and what she found made us all lean in closer. There's a pattern of emergency maintenance fees charged only to certain houses. And guess what? They all match our addresses. The Patel's teenage son, who runs the neighborhood's social media, pulled out his phone. "Check this out," he said, showing us snapshots from the community website. Every time someone posted about Linda's harassment, the posts would disappear within hours. But he'd been saving screenshots for months, building a digital trail of her abuse of power. Just then, Mrs. Chen's security camera app pinged. Linda was out there, putting more violation notices on my empty driveway. We watched in real time as she pulled out her phone, took photos, then edited them right there on her device. The timestamp would show the violations had been ongoing, but we were watching her stage the whole thing. "Wait," David whispered, pulling out his own phone. "Remember that weird Sunday, when she made us all move our cars for that emergency pipe repair?" He played a video showing Linda's brother-in-law's tow truck moving through the neighborhood that day, but no repair crew ever showed up. Mrs. Chen disappeared into her study and came back with a thick binder. "I've been keeping records since they tried to force me out last year," she said quietly. Inside were photos, letters, and even recordings of HOA meetings where Linda thought no one was paying attention. There was a detailed timeline of every fake violation, every forged document, and every discriminatory action. The room fell silent as we realized just how deep this went. It wasn't just about my car anymore. This was organized harassment hiding behind HOA rules. But Linda had made one crucial mistake. She thought we wouldn't talk to each other. She thought we were all alone. My phone buzzed, another text, this time from an unknown number. "I work at the towing company. What happened to your car wasn't right. I have proof of what really happened that night." I looked up at the room full of neighbors who had become allies, each with their own piece of evidence against Linda's reign of terror. "So," Mrs. Chen said, her eyes twinkling with determination, "who's ready to go to the next board meeting?" As hands raised around the room, I realized this wasn't just about getting justice for my car anymore. But with Linda's influence over the board, would our evidence be enough to stop her before she could destroy the evidence? And our lives? I walked into the HOA meeting room that evening with my heart pounding, but my head held high. Linda sat at the center of the long table, wearing her signature fake pearls and an even faker smile. The room was packed. I'd never seen so many neighbors attend a meeting before. Mrs. Chen squeezed my hand as we took our seats, the manila folder of evidence weighing heavy in my other hand. "Mr. Jackson, this meeting isn't meant for your baseless complaints," Linda started, but I cut her off by placing my lawyer's business card on the table. Her smile flickered for just a second. "Actually, Linda, we're here to discuss something very specific," I said, pulling out the first piece of evidence, a time-stamped photo of my car being towed at 3 a.m. "Let's talk about how you forged documents to steal and sell my car." The room went dead silent. I could hear someone's phone buzz in the back. Linda's face turned a shade of red I didn't think was possible. "That's a serious accusation." Board member Thompson, no relation to Linda, spoke up, leaning forward. "Do you have proof?" One by one, I laid out our evidence. Mrs. Chen's security footage, showing Linda directing the tow truck. The forged abandonment papers with Linda's handwriting, confirmed by a handwriting expert. The suspiciously quick auction sale to her brother-in-law's dealership. But the real bombshell came when other residents started standing up. "She did the same thing to my son's truck last year," Mrs. Rodriguez called out from the back. "We couldn't prove it then, but we have the paperwork now." "And my daughter's car," Mr. Kim added, his voice shaking with anger. "She claimed it was an eyesore because of the paint job." Linda's composure cracked. "These people are lying. They're trying to destroy everything we've built here. Our property values are just fine," my lawyer interrupted, walking in with perfect timing. "But your legal troubles are just beginning, Mrs. Thompson." He laid out 3 more folders on the table. "We have documented evidence of discriminatory practices, targeting minority homeowners in this community, selective enforcement of HOA rules, falsified violation notices, and what appears to be a pattern of property theft through fraudulent towing orders." Linda stood up so fast her chair fell backward. "This is ridiculous. I've served this community for 15 years. You can't possibly believe we have the towing company's records, I said quietly, pulling out the final piece of evidence. They kept copies of every order you sent them, including the ones you signed using other board members' names. The other board members' heads snapped toward Linda. She had forged their signatures too. The room erupted in chaos as people started shouting questions and demands. I moved for an immediate vote to suspend Linda Thompson from her position, Board Member Thompson announced, his face grim, and to cooperate fully with any legal investigation. Linda grabbed her designer purse, her hands shaking. "You'll regret this," she hissed at me. "All of you will." But as she turned to storm out, she found 2 police officers blocking the door. Mrs. Chen had called them earlier, just in case. The sight of Linda's face as they read her rights, well, let's just say Mrs. Chen's security camera caught that moment perfectly too. The meeting lasted 3 more hours. By the end, we had a temporary board appointed, and a full audit of the HOA's actions over the past 5 years was ordered. But something else happened too. Something more important than catching Linda. For the first time, neighbors who had never spoken to each other were sharing stories, exchanging numbers, and planning community meetings. As we walked out into the cool night air, Mrs. Chen patted my arm. "Sometimes bad people do us a favor," she said with a wise smile. "They bring good people together." I looked back at the meeting room, where Linda's precious HOA was already voting on new anti-discrimination policies. But as I watched a tow truck pull up to take evidence from Linda's own garage, I couldn't help but wonder how many other communities were dealing with their own Lindas right now. The morning of the lawsuit hearing changed everything. Linda strutted into the courthouse wearing her designer suit and pearl necklace, nose held high like she owned the place. She didn't even look my way, but I noticed her hands shaking when she clutched her leather briefcase. Our lawyer laid out the evidence piece by piece. First came the security footage from Mrs. Chen's cameras, showing Linda directing the tow truck at 3 a.m. The judge's eyes narrowed. Then came the forged documents. The signature expert pointed out how Linda had copied my signature from old HOA papers. Her face turned whiter than her pearls, but the real bombshell dropped when 5 other families came forward. Each had a story about Linda's harassment. The Rodriguez family's garden, destroyed for unapproved plants. The Patels' constant fines for cooking smells. And elderly Mr. Thompson's forced removal of his wheelchair, ramp for aesthetic violations. Linda's lawyer tried spinning tales about HOA regulations and property values. That's when Mrs. Chen shuffled to the witness stand, pulling out her iPad. "I've documented everything for the past year," she said, her voice soft but clear. She played videos of Linda making racist comments during HOA meetings, screenshots of discriminatory emails, and photos of Linda's own house breaking the very rules she enforced on others. The judge called a recess. I watched Linda frantically whispering to her lawyer in the hallway. When we returned, she looked like she'd seen a ghost. The judge's verdict was crystal clear. Linda had broken not just HOA rules, but federal discrimination laws. That evening, news vans lined our street. Linda's perfect reputation crumbled as reporters dug deeper, uncovering similar schemes at her previous HOA presidency in another state. She resigned that night through a tearful email claiming health issues. The next week, our community held emergency elections. Mrs. Chen won by a landslide, turns out. Most neighbors had just been too scared to stand up to Linda before. The first board meeting under Mrs. Chen's leadership felt like a celebration. People actually smiled and talked to each other. My car? It took some legal wrangling, but we tracked it down to Linda's brother-in-law's dealership 3 states away. He'd tried to flip it for a quick profit, but our lawyer's cease and desist letter changed his mind real quick. When my Mercedes finally came home, Mrs. Chen organized a neighborhood welcome back party right in my driveway. The new HOA rules now require recorded votes for all decisions, and we installed security cameras throughout the community. Linda still lives here. She couldn't sell her house in this market. Every morning, I warm up my car for exactly 5 minutes before heading to work, right in her view. She keeps her curtains closed now, but Mrs. Chen says she sees Linda peeking sometimes. Last week, I noticed Linda's garden was overgrown. A clear violation of the HOA rules. She once wielded like a weapon. Mrs. Chen just smiled and said, "We'll give her a friendly reminder. That's what good neighbors do." Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's showing someone a better way to treat people. The lawsuit money? I used it to start a legal fund for HOA disputes in our county. Turns out Linda's case opened a lot of eyes about HOA abuse. Mrs. Chen jokes that karma comes with compound interest. But you know what's funny? Our property values actually went up after all this. Turns out people really do prefer living in a community where everyone is treated fairly. I still have that first warning note Linda left on my door. I framed it and hung it in my home office. It reminds me that standing up for what's right isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. And every time I pull into my driveway, I smile, knowing that sometimes justice comes with a side of poetic irony and a whole lot of security cameras.